Hey guys, welcome to the Stuff of Legend. My name is Daniel, and today we are going to be talking about Spider-Man Homecoming. This is honestly one of my favorite videos to put together. Gotten started on a couple, and this one is really special to me because Spider-Man was what got me into superheroes in general. I was just a kid, I was 9 or something when Spider-Man came out with Tobey Maguire. It changed my world. I got into acting, I wanted to get into stunts, I wanted to be Spider-Man essentially, you know, all the stuff. There was a lot of other elements there like Power Rangers, watching Jackie Chan movies. That was pretty much what I wanted to do with my life. You know, I still ended up doing those things for a time. Now I'm in sales, now there's a different motivation for me, and it's called money. Spider-Man is very special. Every one of us, true believers, as Stanley would put it, is in love with the character for a number of reasons. And what's shocking about Spider-Man Homecoming is how the element of Uncle Ben, which sets him up for true success as a story, as a character, is totally absent from this film, and yet it did so flippin' well. It did amazing. And everybody I talked to loved it. There's a lot of people that were like, Andrew Garfield was the best, I wish he had stayed on. I'm like, well, have you seen Homecoming? And they're all, no. What, why? Because, well, I don't know, there's so many movies. Yeah, and this one is the best, you should still see it. It's really good. I'm gonna start to get into why right now. So, let's talk about some of the things that I liked about the film. One is Tom Holland. Tom Holland is different from Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield because Tobey, he was portraying an adult, coming out of high school in the first movie and getting a job as a photographer. Tom Holland plays the younger Peter, still in high school. It's really interesting because Tobey Maguire, he had that like gentle spirit but very awkward. When stuff would happen, he was like just disappointed. Andrew Garfield was energetic and like kind of bouncing all over the place. He almost had this ADD vibe, kind of quick talking, and when he had the suit on is when he really came alive. His Spider-Man in the suit was amazing. That's when everybody fell in love with Andrew Garfield. He was quippy in the middle of battle scenes, not just to set up a battle. In the heat, he was still spitting fire. It was awesome. To see him go was tough. I remember when Marvel announced that Spider-Man would be joining the MCU, and then it came out that it was contingent upon their deal that they had to reboot the franchise, and I think that was on Sony's end. But I was very upset. I was very upset. Everyone I knew was upset. Andrew Garfield was doing an amazing job. Andrew Garfield was upset. There was a video of him crying about it, actually, and I know a lot of us shed tears as well. But when they announced that Tom Holland was going to be his replacement, first of all, I had never seen any of his other work, and I still actually have not. But when he got announced, I was like, who's this kid? He looks shrimpy, he looks tiny. And then when Civil War came out, everyone lost it. When he took the shield from Cap, and he's like, underoos, and whistles and what, I can't whistle, but he, you know, underoos, and he yells, and then he flips over, steals the thing, he's like, hey guys. That was the moment I think everybody fell in love because Marvel had finally done it right because they had a chance to do it themselves without Sony being directly involved. And it was glorious. That's when we got the new logo, that's when we got the eyes that shutter. So they're adjustable, so they could kind of play it the same way that they played the Deadpool eyes. So Deadpool's eyes being CGI, they can do tons of expressions and anger and like all that stuff. You know, they change the shapes of the eye holes to adjust to portray emotion. We got to see that with this Spider-Man. So whenever he had a moment, like where you don't see Tom Holland's face, but you hear him, John Cena, you can't see. They did the animated eyes in order to create a further communication of emotion. And it really helped to grab me, and it grabbed everybody that loved the film. You ask them what it was, most people don't think about it, but they loved the way that Spider-Man looked. It looked good. It felt good. And it's because when the camera looked at him and they did their little editing and tricks, they could make him convey emotion like, oh my gosh, or like serious, you know, like that kind of stuff. So it was very, very cool. Very subtle too, the way that they change it, not on the outside of the eyes, but like a camera lens on the inside, but they change the shapes depending on what he's doing. And it's, you know, the reasoning for putting that in there was supposedly for like zoom and stuff like that, because it's part of his new tech suit. But in reality, they did that so that for the aesthetic, so that they could communicate through his face more. And that was a beautiful, beautiful thing. That's something I liked. I liked the face. I liked the way it looked. Michael Keaton. Dang it, man, he did it again. He did it so well. So he was an awesome Batman. I liked him. It wasn't as brooding. It was a slightly different take on it. I like a lot of the Batmans to date, but his was really cool. Not my favorite one, but it was a great one. And it stands out because of the feel that you get from Michael Keaton's character instead. You don't really have the voice augmentation. You don't really sound like this. So it ends up being pretty cool and unique, even though it's reverse engineering that, because my generation, we saw the recent ones usually before the other ones. And so I'm 25, by the way, in case you guys didn't know. Michael Keaton's suit, that was another thing. So the Vulture was a relatively unknown enemy to people that were casual fans of Spider-Man. They just either saw the movie or they just played with either the toy or they played the video game. Vulture literally flew under the radar, pretty much, and it was like a spandex suit. It's like a green spandex suit. It's an old man with a little like vulture-y collar, and I was curious when they announced Vulture was the enemy. I was like, I don't know. Vulture's kind of boring. Why would you pick Vulture? There's some stuff they did in the 90s TV show with Stan Lee and Avi Arad, the animated one. I love that show. My daughter and my daughter's like 1 year old. She sat with me and watched that entire series on Amazon. We love that show, both me and her. And it's awesome. She can say Spider-Man now, so it's a cool thing. It's kind of still mumbly with the baby, but it's good. There was a really cool revamp of his suit that had like a really cool like Ace Combat looking helmet. You know, it looks like a pilot's helmet because he's flying around in a tech suit this time instead of some spandex looking wingsuit. It actually would have looked like the Falcon from Civil War is what it theoretically should have looked like, and I was expecting that. But I think in the infinite wisdom of Marvel Studios, they said, we already have a wingsuit guy, we need a different wingsuit. So they went with a helicopter, alien tech-powered wingsuit with jet turbines and all kinds of cool stuff. And where he like kind of enters the suit like an exoskeleton, kind of how Iron Man does. It was a really cool thing, especially because the story plays off of Iron Man, the Vulture suit. So it kind of has that exoskeleton, kind of like how Iron Man has the exosuit. It's like that, but it looks wicked cool. And they gave him a tech rifle, which I thought made him 10 times cooler. It was really cool to watch him use that, and then also to use giant mechanical claws to swoop up and pick up Spider-Man, which made sense because Spider-Man's stupid strong. He's wicked strong. And people don't recognize that, but he is. So it would take a lot to pin Spider-Man. So they did. They gave him a ridiculously cool mech suit that is a flight suit. And his helmet looks awesome. And it makes sense. They gave him a pilot's jacket. And the fur is there to keep him from getting either wind chill or frozen or whatever in higher altitudes. And they get into the high altitude stuff towards the end of the film. A few cool like throwbacks. So the Spider-Man opening, it's the Marvel reel, like all the like comic book stuff. It also plays the original Spider-Man theme song. And it's like that old theme song, which I love because it's part of that TV show that I mentioned earlier. Donald Glover plays a character, and he did a good job. At first I was like, why is he doing that? Like, he's kind of an odd person. Is he playing a villain? They kept it quiet. They didn't want to say who he was, and there's a good reason, and I'm going to get into that in my spoiler review. It's all the Easter eggs and stuff that's hidden and all that good stuff, so be looking for that. That's coming. So shocker, lots of villains. I love the fact that they put multiple villains that are kind of lower level, including the Vulture, who is supposed to be relatively lower level. They made him a weapons dealer alongside the Tinkerer, which was really cool, especially because of some other things involving the tower and some recent events with Disney. And I'll get into that again in my theory video, which is going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to have a lot of fun referring back to this video. tons of open doors. Donald Glover mentions that people he used to work with were going to meet up with the weapons dealers. He didn't know where they were, but he knew where they were going to meet. And that happened to be the ferry. That's where you get the ferry scene. It's actually not explicit who he's talking about there. It could have been any one of the people on the boat that we know the names of, or it could have been one of the underlings and people that were not named, were not mentioned. We know of Scorpion, we know of Shocker, which was the Herman Schultz one at that time. And then we also know Vulture was on board. He could have been referring to Adrian Toomes. He might have known Toomes and not known that he was the Vulture. There was a lot of things. Again, I'll refer to that in another segment. The Avengers Tower being sold was a huge plot point. So all the way throughout the film, they were talking about the tower. It was about how in the beginning, the battle at New York with the Chitauri, that set up the whole film. All the tech weapons, the destruction of New York was what caused the DDC to be created by Iron Man, by Tony Stark. And that created a very powerful enemy in Adrian Toomes. That was what set up the plot, so that 8 years later, he would have this whole weapons deal business going, and it would be strong. He'd be making money to provide for his wife and child, his daughter, which we find out later, which is fun. There's a ton of cool stuff in this. So many plot points that are unforeseen. I didn't see so much of that coming. The whole showing up at the door and Liz's father is the Vulture was the best. I'm really good at predicting where stuff is gonna go. If you ask a couple of my friends, they'll say I won't, because I would share with them on social media. Bruce Wayne is not really Bruce Wayne. He's Deathstroke and that kind of stuff. Back when Batman vs. Superman was coming out and all that, there's like a ton of fun videos. I love theories. So I'll have a lot of that to share with you guys where the franchise might go. The tower is a central theme. It should keep our wheels turning, because they don't close who bought the building. They sold it to somebody. It's who bought it. Is it a good guy? Is it a bad guy? Is it nobody? They don't tell us. And I think that Marvel did that because they had a direction where they wanted to go based on the assets they already had. And they knew they were going to be in talks with Fox. So there's a lot of options that they have. With the Netflix going on, the whole Netflix program with Marvel, there's another very viable option. They could play it with a couple of different directions, like, oh, the tower could be purchased by anybody we want right now, and then in the future, depending on what assets we're allowed to acquire, we'll figure out a game plan and a strategy for the next phase of Marvel, and we'll decide then who bought the tower. That's probably what happened in reality, but I think right now they have a good game plan, and I'll get into that in the theory video. But there was so much. As a fan, I freaking loved Spider-Man Homecoming. It had so much story, so much emotion. Like the rubble scene, talk between Tony and Peter where he says, no, please, I'm nothing without this suit. Iron Man's like, if you're nothing without this suit, then you shouldn't have it. They have that whole crushing delivery line, and Peter's just devastated. He goes home and Aunt May is furious at him for not answering her calls. And then he tells her he lost the internship, and there's just, there's so much depth, and it's so easy to get swept away in the emotion because Tom Holland and all the actors involved, I think even Marissa Tomei, the lady who played May Parker, Aunt May, did a great job. She's funny. They've been making Aunt May younger and younger and younger and younger as it goes on. And it makes sense because they've been progressively making Spider-Man a younger man, so it makes sense, but it's like proportionally, I mean, she's getting exponentially younger each film. If they do another reboot, she's going to be a 14-year-old girl, which would be weird. So Iron Man, I thought he was going to have more of a central role, and he was actually fairly hands-off inside the movie, which was nice because a lot of people were worried that Spider-Man was going to get undercut in his own film. That didn't happen, so that was good. A lot of the other actors, Logan Marshall Green, who played Jackson Bryce, the alternate version of Shocker in the comics, Chris Evans, the actual Shocker, Bokeem Woodbine, he did a great job being Shocker once they killed off Jackson. There was a ton of cool stuff. Lots of cool things. I think the only thing, and I have to mention this just because it would be a disservice not to, there was a couple things I didn't like. Flash Thompson. I think that the actor that played Flash, I don't necessarily have a problem with. I'll come out and say I usually don't like it when they racially recast, just because a lot of the superhero films, there's already such a depth to who the character is. If you take an idea, like if you take someone in the role of Spider-Man and Peter Parker can no longer be Spider-Man and a woman steps up, that's great. That's fine. I love that. Or any other, like that whole type of thing, as long as it's not Peter. If you take Peter, who we already know and love, and we know what he looks like and where he's from and all that stuff, you take that and you just rip it up. That's our childhood. That's a lot of our, I don't like that, and so you can take someone and give them the mantle. That's fine. But if you try to take the person and just Nope, yeah, they're this now. Like the Wally West New 52, when I first learned about that, I was like, what? But he's a ginger. He's supposed to be a ginger. For me, I've fallen in love with the actor that plays Wally West in The Flash on CW. He's a great actor. He does Wally really well, especially in this newer season. We don't see him a lot, but he's a lot more quippy and funny. They gave him a lot more funny moments, and he's a really good emotional actor too. In fact, that's the only reason why anybody gets hired on CWs, for emotion. The recasting of Flash Thompson was weird. And it wasn't because of the casting, it was because of the writing. All of that to say, this was not Flash Thompson. This was not the Flash Thompson that we know from the comics or from any of the series. It's bothersome, but I get why they did it. They pushed for more modern. And right now, what's relevant right now is cyberbullying and social bullying, that kind of stuff. Nobody gets beat up anymore. That rarely happens. And if you do, you shouldn't. Somebody should be standing up for you, if not yourself. The guy that played him, I think his name was like Tony Revolori, something like that. He did fine for what they were giving him, but they chose to make him a weakling. They made him a tiny little man. They chose someone small to play the bully. He's supposed to be a physically intimidating guy. Now, I understand that it's not like they were aiming for a physically intimidating guy, and they were aiming for the school jock. He wasn't the football star, but Flash Thompson's supposed to be the football star. Flash Thompson's supposed to be stuffing kids in lockers and giving them swirlies and all that stuff, and that wasn't this guy. If they wanted to pick an Indian guy for Flash Thompson, they could have. Pick a big one and make him a jerk, you know? They kind of made this guy a little bit of a douchebag, you know what I mean? He's kind of tasteless. He's rude. He calls you names, but he's not stuffing you in lockers. You know, he's not beating you up. You know, it's like, that's the guy that should be Flash. The guy that's stuffing you in lockers and beating the crap out of you and that kind of thing. So for me, that was the big thing I didn't like. Another thing was the nod to MJ on a character that isn't MJ. So a lot of people came out of the theater like, what? That's MJ? Why is that MJ? That's not MJ. And I'm like, no, actually, you're right. That's not MJ. Try not to get hung up on that. And then as time went on, I have a hard time reconciling in my head whether or not Marvel Studios is actually going to do anything with Zendaya's character. I mean, they hired somebody as popular as Zendaya for that role, and Tom Holland posted a lot on social media. So grateful to be able to work with Zendaya. Okay, there's a really sweet dynamic there, and then you could literally cut her out of the entire movie. No change. No difference. She had no relevance to the entire story. She was there for 3 quips. One in the beginning, one in the middle, one at the end. And then the scene where she's like, oh, my friends call me MJ. So, yeah. Hey, there's MJ. No, it's not MJ. We're just throwing that out because it's a throwback. So it's there to remind you of MJ. It's not actually MJ. So if that's why you didn't like the film, if you walked out and you're like, they ruined MJ, it's actually not MJ. And it's not even supposed to be MJ. It's called a throwback. It's something to just mentally remind you of something else that happened in the past. That's something I didn't like. I thought if they're not going to do MJ, they shouldn't have done that. But other than Flash Thompson and Michelle's striking irrelevance, I thought that the movie was awesome. I thought everything about it was great. I can't wait for the next one. I can't wait for Infinity War. Even in the trailer of Infinity War, for those of you who haven't seen the Infinity War trailer, turn down your volume for the next 20 seconds. When the hair stands up on his arm, so when that giant portal comes out of nowhere and it's floating over New York City, you see the train and Tom Holland's there and he's got his head down, then his arm hairs stand up and he's all bending this way. They're going towards the danger. That was a really cool add-in to really communicate how his spider sense is a biological power. It's something that's part of him. They showed him being very quick to react and being able to dodge a whole lot, but they didn't really show his spider sense in Homecoming. That was something I was kind of looking for and I didn't see. Every now and again, take a hit, take a hit. Isn't there warnings about this? I mean, he was, Vulture swooped in and surprise attacked him a couple of times, and I think he did look right when it was about to happen, but Vulture had turbines too, so it's like it could have been noise. I wanted something that was plainly and obviously supposed to be spider sensed. Not hearing, not sight, just boom. He just sensed it and dodged. Other than that, everything was great. Amazing film. If you haven't seen Spider-Man Homecoming, go see it. I'm gonna be posting a full movie recap, which I mentioned earlier. I ran into a couple hiccups this week, so I'm giving you my take on Spider-Man Homecoming, and then you can watch the 15-minute recap of the entire film next week, and I'll have that up for you guys. I'm going to be posting an Easter egg video recapping everything that happened in Spider-Man Homecoming because we're getting ready for a whole lot more. Marvel's already said how relevant Spider-Man Homecoming 2 is going to be to the future of the MCU. It's going to be amazing. Like many of you, Spider-Man is at the core of my heart. But thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate you guys liking, sharing, subscribe. It's, you know, I'm going to keep making regardless, but I appreciate that. Leave a comment down below if there's a video you want me to make a video on. Thank you guys so much for watching. This has been my take on Spider-Man Homecoming. I'm going to have a lot more videos coming for you guys. Please stay tuned. Subscribe if you want to see more. Comment down below if you have a video suggestion or if there's a topic you want me to cover, and I will see if I can make that happen for you guys. Like and share, please. That helps me out. If you liked it, share it with those you love. If you hated this video, share it with your enemies. Have a great rest of your week, and I will see you next time on The Stuff of Legend.